Welcome everyone to our special year-end episode. I'm Sam and with me today is the always insightful Nipasa.
Thank you, Sam. Well, we've had a roller coaster of a year and we are here to break it all down for you. Everything from policy changes to protests, elections, and more in the US, Canada, and the UK.
Absolutely. Whether it's the dramatic shifts in US immigration under Biden administration, or Trump's return to politics, or the growing protest in Canada, or the heated election battles in the UK, 2024 was packed with big stories.
And today, we'll be taking you through the biggest headlines, the game changing policies, and the events that shaped the future of these countries. From the streets of London to the borders of US, it's all here.
So, buckle up as we round off all the key incidents, debates, and decisions that define 2024 across the globe. Let's jump right in. So, let's take a deep dive into everything that happened in US immigration in 2024. And let me tell you that this year was packed with news. So, let's start with President Biden. 2024 was a big year for immigration. With Biden introducing key reforms, one of the most talked about was the Family Unity Parole Program. So, Napasa, can you please share what was that all about?
Well, this program was designed to help keep immigrant families together while their cases are being processed. It gave certain undocumented immigrants, especially dreamers and essential workers, temporary protection from deportation. But Biden faced a lot of pushback on this.
Right. And he also made changes to the H-1B visa system, which affected thousands of tech workers laid off this year. The reforms were meant to streamline the process for 2025 H-1B cap, especially after all the uncertainty in 2024.
And let's not forget the asylum policy changes Biden tried to implement. There was a focus on creating more pathways for asylum seekers, but the court were heavily involved, slowing things down. Not all his plans went smoothly.
And now, while Biden was shaping immigration policy, Donald Trump was never far from the headlines. In 2024, Donald Trump survived two significant assassination attempts before ultimately winning the presidential election in November.
First assassination attempt, July 13, 2024, Butler, Pennsylvania incident. During a campaign rally, Thomas Matthew Crooks fired 8 rounds from an AR-15 style rifle, grazing Trump's right ear. The attack resulted in 2 deaths, including the perpetrator, and injured 7 people. Trump was wounded but continued his campaign.
Yes, and if we talk about a second assassination attempt that occurred at Trump's golf club in West Palm Beach, Florida, then Ryan Weasley Routh was spotted with a rifle and was subsequently detained by Secret Service agents.
Despite these challenges, Trump won the 2024 presidential election in November, defeating Kamala Harris. He secured victories in key states like Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Wisconsin. And look, when Trump won in November, everyone knew he wasn't just coming back. He was coming back with a vengeance. His team, they're not your typical political players. They're fighters, true believers in his America First vision. Take Tom Hooman at Homeland Security. This guy's been Trump's immigration hawk from day one. Remember how passionate he was about the border wall? He's not just going to talk about it, he's going to push to finish what they started. And Stephen Miller, he's the mastermind behind the tough immigration policies. When he talks immigration, Trump listens. Rudy Giuliani might be circling back too, probably looking to shake things up in the Justice Department. Classic Rudy, always ready for a political battle. And Mike Pompeo, he's chomping at the bit to get tough on China and show the world America means business. This isn't just another administration. This is a team assembled to dramatically reshape how government works. They're not interested in playing nice or following the old rules. They want to disrupt, to push hard on the policies Trump promised. Tighter borders, less bureaucracy, more American first thinking. Right. Trump's message is clear. We're back and we're not holding anything back.
And now let's move on to USCIS updates. Firstly, there was the digital filing system USCIS launched to help speed up processing. There were definitely some early technical issues, but the goal was to cut down on the backlog, which had been a huge problem. So, another big story was the visa fraud crackdown. USCIS and ICE joined forces to investigate fraudulent companies abusing the H 1B visa program, which made headlines in the tech community.
And speaking of high profile issues, crime at the southern border was a big topic in 2024. With an increase in fentanyl smuggling, there was a lot of pressure on the administration to tighten border security.
Exactly. Both parties, Democrats and Republicans, were calling for action. In fact, the Biden administration had to balance border security with humanitarian issues like dealing with asylum seekers and unaccompanied minors, too.
Well, that's all for 2024 US Immigration Roundup.
And now let's take a look back at everything that happened in Canada 2024, especially around immigration changes, protests, and more. So, ready, Napasa?
Absolutely. 2024 was a big year, especially with immigration being such a hot topic. Let's dive in. While businesses supported it, some Canadians worried about job competition, which led to a lot of debates. That brings us to the anti immigration protests. These were massive, especially in Ontario and Quebec. People were frustrated, demanding the government to put Canadians first.
Exactly. The protest grew as the year went on, with people feeling that immigration was worsening the housing crisis and public services. And about Prime Minister Trudeau, he stood by his pro immigration stance but faced a lot of political backlash. Right, Napasa?
Yes, he pushed for immigration as a solution to the labor shortage, but had to promise more funding for housing to calm the public. There was also a rise in crime in cities like Toronto. Although there wasn't clear evidence linking this to immigration, it became a talking point for anti immigration groups.
Yes, it fueled the argument for stricter border controls and background checks. So that's all about Canada's update of 2024. And now let's move ahead with recapping all the major events in the UK for 2024.
From immigration policies, elections, and crime to massive protests, we've got a lot to cover. Let's start with immigration policies, the most talked about topic of the year. So, the UK government, led by Rishi Sunak, introduced some strict immigration policies this year. What stood out for you?
Well, for me, the focus was on reducing net migration. They implemented tighter visa rules, especially for skilled workers and students. They also cracked down on illegal immigration with border security enhancements. And that caused quite the stir. The public was divided, and there were long delays in visa applications, especially for asylum seekers.
Exactly. The asylum backlog grew, and this put pressure on the government to find quicker solutions. But it also sparked a rise in anti immigration protests. In cities like London and Birmingham, thousands protested, some demanding stricter controls, while others called for more compassionate policies. The protests became a symbol of the growing public divide.
In fact, crime was another hot topic, with the government being criticized for how they handle the rising gang violence and border related crimes. Rishi Sunak's government increased funding for policing and border security, but many felt that it wasn't enough, especially as violent crime increased in major cities.
Yes, Rishi Sunak. His leadership came under fire, especially as we approached the 2024 general elections. Sunak's popularity fluctuated throughout the year. His government stance on immigration was both praised and criticized, with some seeing it as necessary for protecting jobs, while others saw it as anti immigrant.
And then there's Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party. He took a different approach on immigration, right? That Starmer advocated for a fairer immigration system, calling for more visas for critical sectors like healthcare. He also promised to address the worker shortages but faced a lot of criticism for not offering clear solution.
But Sam, here's a question that So, how did that impact the 2024 election? The elections were incredibly close. Rishi Sunak did manage to hold onto his own parliamentary seat in Richmond and not Allerton, but he lost the overall general election in a massive defeat for the Conservative Party. But Labour Party made big gains. Labour Party secured a resounding victory that ended 14 years of Conservative governance. Sir Keir Starmer led Labour to a comprehensive win, dramatically transforming the political landscape. Immigration was at the heart of the debates, with both sides promising reforms.
Yeah, but I'm little curious to know that with all these policies, how did the public respond?
There were mixed reactions. Some supported tougher immigration laws to protect the job market, while others criticized the lack of support for refugees and international students. It really split the country.
Yeah, and it wasn't just immigration policies that caused unrest. In fact, the rise in violent crime put even more pressure on the government.
Exactly. Crime rates soared in places like London, and the government's response, while focused on boosting police presence, was seen as too little, too late.
And that's a wrap for today's episode, friends. We have covered the major events and headlines from 2024, taking you through the US, Canada, and UK.
From immigration policy changes and elections to protests, crimes, and the leaders who shaped these decisions, we have tried to cover it all. It's been a year of change, challenge, and plenty of debate.
We hope this episode gave you a clear picture of how these three countries navigated such an eventful year. And as we head into 2025, we are sure that these issues will continue to evolve.
Thanks for tuning in today, and don't forget to join us next time for more insights and updates.
Until then, stay informed and stay safe and subscribe to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show.